Carla, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can. Hi.
Hey. So let me set the stage here and we'll jump into it.
hmm
You and I don't know each other. We have just
No.
connected through social media. You've got a story to
hmm
tell. I know very little, if anything, about your story, and I'm excited to hear about it. So what I'd love to do is let you tell your story, and I'll ask you some questions. But really, what I want to do as I interview people who have lived through experiences like yours is to give
Yeah,
them hope and healing after abuse, to
yeah.
let them know that as hellish as it is right in the middle of the abuse, there is hope on the other side of it. Does that
Yeah.
sound okay if we do that?
Yeah. Sounds fine. Yeah.
Awesome. Wonderful. So just give me a little bit of an understanding of your background, and then let's jump into your story in particular.
Well, if you couldn't tell already, I'm Scottish. um, I know my accent's quite harsh. If you can't understand me, just tell me to like slow down. I know we can speak quite quick.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I'm 19, almost 20. I'm going back to university this year. I was at university when I was 17 to 18.
Okay.
I was studying midwifery. I done a year of that and I left just because of some personal reasons. That relationship had a big part to play in that as well. But I'm going back this year, so I'm going back in September actually, quite close.
Yep.
um, and I've been working as a carer in the year that I've had out of uni. So that's kind of my little background story.
Great. Tell us a little bit about the family dynamic as you grew up. A little bit about your family and your parents.
So I'm an only child. My parents split up when I was 9 years old. Um, I've now got one stepbrother on my mum's side, and I've got one stepbrother and a stepsister on my mum's side, on my dad's side, sorry. Um, but yeah, no, it was actually quite good. I can't complain about my childhood. I had two loving parents. Obviously, they split up. There was some animosity in there, but yeah, no, it was great. I liked having my step siblings. That was good. I got on really well with my little sister because we just refer to each other as sister and brother because we
Yeah.
don't really add that step part on.
Nice.
But no, it's lovely. Yeah.
That's wonderful. My mother's second marriage, she divorced him after a couple of years, but he had two sons. And so they are former stepbrothers. And yeah, much easier and much more accurate to just call them brothers, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. It's definitely easier to say that.
Yeah, that's great. Okay, so tell us a little bit about the first couple of relationships you had in your adolescent years or as you got into uni and stuff like that.
hmm I've only really ever had two. I mean, I'm only 19. One of them wasn't very serious, and the other one was.
Okay.
Um, yeah, and the one that was, abusive was the longer one.
Okay.
Um, so yeah, I've kind of had the two, two very opposite sides of it. I had a really lovely person, and then the not so lovely person.
Tell us a little bit about the lovely person. That was the first relationship?
That was the second one,
The
actually.
second
That
one.
was kind of in between, actually, because with the abusive one, it was kind of on and off for a little while.
Yeah.
Um, but the nice person, he was a lovely, lovely person. Really showed me what respect looks like in a relationship. Um, yeah, and he was definitely a lovely person. We just, just different. I actually moved away quite far away for university, and that's why that ended. Um, but no, there was no animosity between us or anything like that. It was very amicable.
Nice. I think that's important for people to understand and hear after an abusive relationship that there can be normal relationships
Yeah,
after.
yeah, that's very true. Yeah.
Yeah. So walk us through, how did you meet the abuser?
It was actually at school. We actually met at a very young age. We met when we were 15, actually, so it was
Yeah.
very, very young. Um, and so yeah, we spent quite a lot of time together in that aspect. But it kind of went from that age, obviously, that very, very young age, up until just Christmas past there. So when we were both just turned 19.
Okay.
So I mean, it wasn't going on for that long, but it was in and out, in and out. But prior to us turning 19, we'd been together seriously for about 7 months or so. And that's when most of it kind of came out, I should say. Yeah.
Okay. Tell us what kinds of things came out.
Um, hold on, actually,
Yep.
because I'm not very good at remembering. So I've kind of learned to kind of shut it out. But I
I
do.
That is such a good point for anybody who's listening to this or watching this later. We shut out those memories and those painful things, and that's why a journal is so helpful. I'm a huge proponent of journaling, and those people I work with and coach, I constantly recommend that they journal, not because you want to remember those things, but because it helps you gain clarity. There's such a confusing thing that happens in abusive situations, and it's hard to piece it all
Definitely.
together.
Oh, I was trying to find something. I couldn't find it. And I was like, where did I put it? I found it now.
Great.
It was actually that thing that I first sent you, that little note that I wrote down when I actually first got in contact with you. There
Yeah.
we go.
You have it
Because
there?
I think, yeah, I do actually. The reason why I wrote this actually was because I thought to myself, I still have pictures and things like that of the both of us. That's the only thing I kept from the relationship. And I thought to myself, I'll keep these, but I thought I don't want to look back in like 5 years and like not remember the bad things that he
Mhm.
done and think maybe it could have worked because I just blocked it
Yes.
all out. So I kind of thought to myself, write down most of like the reasons why it was so bad, and then you'll
Yes.
remember, and then you'll be like, yeah, that's why. But so obviously because we were older, I mean, here in the UK, it's the legal age to drink is 18.
Yes.
So we would like go out for meals and stuff and be able to drink alcohol. And one thing that he did a lot that at the time I didn't recognize as being, controlling. He wouldn't let me go to the bar on my own. Never, ever would let me do that. And he would kind of mask it as like, oh, I don't want you going to the bar because you're so pretty, and like there'll be other men there, and they'll kind of try and speak to you, and like so he kind of put it in a way as if it was funny, but it wasn't, because he would genuinely say you are not going to that bar on your
Yeah.
own. Um, and like other things, actually we were on holiday together in a really hot country because obviously Scotland is not hot at all. Um, so we went on holiday together, and I was wearing a bikini, obviously, and he was like, "I don't want you wearing that; it's too revealing." And I was at that point, I don't know, I can't remember what I said. I probably complied with it, but looking back, I was like, "You don't get to,
Mhm.
say whether I should or shouldn't wear that. It's my choice. Even if I am with you in a relationship, I'm not going about with my whole body out, I've still got a bikini on, but it's hot weather. Um, and
How
just
did
things like, he would, sorry?
So you complied with it at that time, but over
Yeah.
time, as you figured out that this was a pattern, how did that make you feel?
It wasn't really when I was in the relationship. It was kind of afterwards when I
Mhm.
was reflecting on it.
Okay.
Because I think for us, as we had been on and off for a very long time, and it was because he would end it all the time, just out of nowhere, for the
Yeah.
same reasons. But I just couldn't at the time break that cycle. So it was in December last year where I was kind of like, I kind of realized on my own, no, I don't deserve you. Like, I don't deserve this horribleness. Like, you don't deserve my greatness.
Yeah.
And I'm not doing this again. And that's kind of when everything kind of bloodied in. And I realized, I was like, wow, like, because I feel like on social media, you see, victims of abuse in relationships, it's almost always about physical abuse. So
Yes.
you never really see anything about emotional abuse. And although he never did put his hands on me, I actually, when I look back to certain things, I could see that potentially happening because of the way his behavior was,
Yeah.
certain things he would do. Because you know how sometimes in relationships you like play fight,
Yeah.
sometimes like that, he would do that, or we would do that, sorry. But then when it would get too rough, I'd tell him to stop, but he wouldn't stop, and he'd keep doing that. And I'd think to my like later on, I'd think to myself, he shouldn't have done that. And then, back in December when we broke up, I was thinking, that's not good, like he definitely should have stopped that. And it was just kind of all going on in my mind, kind of
Yes.
putting the pieces together.
That's so important that you realize that you put that together later because yes, emotional abusers hardly ever end with emotional abuse. There's
Yeah.
almost I need to look at this empirically and look at the data and everything before I speak to this authoritatively, but those people who abuse, even though they may be emotional abusers or psychological abusers, at some point when they're losing control will cross that line over into
Mhm.
physical. It's
Yeah.
all about
Uh-huh.
control, and whatever means they can use to get it, they will.
Definitely. I mean, I could definitely see, like, if I looked at our relationship, had it went on a couple more years, if I looked down at, I
Mm,
could see him doing that. Particularly, not just because of that, because of the nature of his job. He was in the military, and the type of regiment that he was in, they were trained to be extremely like aggressive
mm,
over nothing.
yeah,
When he went into that, I did notice that got amped up a lot, and his temper would just go off at nothing.
yeah. It's so unfortunate. There are a fair number of those who are abusers who are in positions of power like that in
Yeah.
military, in
Mhm.
other enforcement roles, and they have power over people and they're protected because of those roles. It is one of the
Yes.
most frustrating things.
Definitely.
Okay, so you started at the time. Let's go back. You were talking about the bikini, and at the
Mhm.
time you complied,
Yeah.
and then I think you're about to tell another story there.
Yeah. I've just got loads of little ones. One of them is he would never acknowledge my achievements. You know,
Mhm.
like because I think for me anyway, I'm a very caring person. If someone's done something great in their life, I really amp it up. So because of his military career, when he would get recognition for that, I would really amp that up and I would always be the one congratulating him. And I was in university, I was studying to be a midwife and you know, there's a lot of hardships that come along with that and there's a lot of great things that come along with that. Like, when you catch your first baby and you do this and that and when I passed first year, I barely got any recognition for the hard work that I'd done off of him and I thought, it's not like I'm asking for a lot, I'm just asking for my boyfriend to be like, yeah, well done, you done good. But no, there wasn't any of that and
Just a little recognition. That's it. Yeah.
yeah.
Do you know why the abuser has a hard time acknowledging other people's contributions and achievements?
No, I don't actually.
It's because it takes away from them. The narcissist, the abuser, and I use those terms interchangeably because those that we consider narcissists, some psychologists would say, no, no, they're not clinically diagnosable. I consider anybody who
Mhm.
has abusive tendencies and self focus such that they're
Yeah.
harming other people. I lump that into narcissist.
Mhm.
So the abuser, the narcissist, whatever term we want to use,
Yeah.
is all about protecting their ego. That's their only concern in life. That's
Yeah.
all they care about. That's all they know. And
Mhm.
because that is the prime motivator in their life, if somebody else achieves something, it takes away from them. And you would think,
Yeah.
well, wouldn't they be proud because that's their girlfriend or their boyfriend and that reflects
Yeah.
positively on them? Only when they're around other people. Then what they'll
Mm.
do is they'll take credit for your accomplishments. So
Yep.
if somebody were to say,
Mhm.
Carla, you just finished first year, that's great. They would jump in and they would go, yeah, good thing she had some help and support at home to make that happen.
Mhm.
They have to be the center of attention. Their ego has to be stroked and praised at all times. So you could have accomplished the most amazing thing, and at most you would get a yeah, that was okay.
Mhm. Yeah. That's it. That really.
It's sad, yeah.
Yeah, it is. Yep.
Okay, what else?
Um. One thing is because we were so on and off, my family seen through it and didn't like him for obvious reasons.
Yeah.
Because it would always hurt me, and I didn't say that obviously because I was still what I call like under the spell. Um, and one thing is my dad. Once we kind of got back together really seriously, kind of I think it was March time last year when I told my dad just was quite horrible about it. But I can see why now. And mine and my dad's relationship kind of suffered a little bit because of that. And my ex boyfriend at the time really did not respect my dad at all, and that's a big thing for me. Like, I really want whoever I'm with to respect both my parents, but especially my dad's, and he just did not. And he didn't make it. He didn't like tootsie around it. Like, he really went for it and was like, I don't care what your dad thinks. Like, your dad's this and that. And I like at the time I kind of just took it, but now looking back, I'm like, that's it's not on. Like, it's my dad you're talking about.
Yeah, no kidding.
So that was one of the things as well. Um,
I want to break in here as you're thinking there. I just want to make an editorial note here. I love that you wanted to capture things so that you never wonder later on, could this have worked? I think that's so
yeah.
important for people to understand in abusive relationships because that's why the
Mhm.
cycle continues. They're so
Yeah,
good. The
it is.
abuser is so good at giving you hope and going back to that charming facade that drew
Yep,
you in the first place. That when you do end it and when you move away from them, that charming person comes again and you start to think maybe we could have made it, maybe I should have done this, and that's why it's so
yeah,
important to have these things recorded.
it is. Like, I remember he then broke up with me again in the September time, which was, we'd had the 7 months kind of together period, and out out of nowhere, he just done it again. And after that, I kind of told myself, no, like, we're never going to do that again, blah blah blah. But at that point, I was not strong enough, and it was about 3 weeks later of like no contact. He messaged me and he said something to me that he knew I wouldn't be able to ignore because and I there's a few reasons now why I do think he was lying about this, but he said to me basically he tried to end his own life and that he was sorry for everything he'd done and that he loves me. And I do now think that he lied about that. So
Yes.
I initially messaged him back because at that point I was a mess anyway, and I still cared about him even though he done all the horrible things to me. And then after that, we basically kind of got back together because he just sucked me right back in. And I did notice, looking back, I did notice that for the first sort of 2 weeks when he was trying to like win me back, he was doing everything that I want, not everything I wanted, but being everything that I wanted, because we were a long distance couple. He would message me all the time, FaceTime me whenever I wanted to, phone me because he knew that's what I wanted because it was healthy. Um, and then we actually also had a conversation because my ex-boyfriend did have mental health issues that he didn't acknowledge, partly because of how he's brought up and because of his military career. Because they intern them that mental health isn't real when it is.
Right.
And so part of like at that point, my thinking was, if we're ever going to make this work, you need to get help. And I
Yeah.
was like, I'm not going to force you to do that. I was like, but it is either you get help and I will be here with you, or you don't, and I'm away. And at that point, he was like, no, you're right. I need help. Like, I've got issues. Like, you know, I want to make this work with you, blah, blah, blah. And then about 2 months went by, and then it kind of just, it was down again. Like, he wasn't phoning me, wasn't messaging me, didn't make effort. And then when I said, have you done anything about getting help? And he was like, no, like, I don't want to do that. No, I don't have time, blah, blah, blah. And then it was actually a point where it was Christmas time, coming up to Christmas time, sorry, and he was coming home for about 3 weeks, and we hadn't seen each other in about a month and a half, and we actually live very close to one another. It's about a 5 minute drive, and he'd been home for a week, and I'd been trying to see him, and then the week was past, and I said, why have we not seen each other? I was like, any other person who had me as their girlfriend and hadn't seen me in a month and a half would, be wanting to see me. And he said to me, I think he said, who knows? And after that, I just went, whatever. And that was it. That was me basically saying, I'm done with you. You don't deserve me. And that was the last time I spoke to him like that. And and the next few months after that, he did try and message me, but I always ignored it. And I think that really messed with him because I would never ignore him beforehand. But it was in that instance I knew that I was done, and I didn't deserve any of that.
How did you realize that? So you told us that it happened, but what really happened in your
Mhm.
mind and heart to where you said, this is not what I want anymore?
Yeah, I think it was because I honestly don't know. It was kind of just this like penny dropping situation like when in that time between the September and the December when we kind of like got back together, I knew in my heart like the way he was treating me wasn't right, but I didn't have like the strength to end it myself
Yeah.
because at that point I didn't think I could like be without him.
Yes.
Um, and then just kind of after seeing that he hadn't changed at all and he didn't have any plans to change, and just the way he was treating me again after not that long of a period of time, I kind of just I don't know, I just realized to myself, you know, this isn't how someone should treat you. And the fact that he would throw around the phrase that he loved me, and I thought, you know, this is really messing up that phrase for me. I was like, because now I'm like,
Yes.
I don't know really what that means because you say it to me, but you don't, you know. So I don't really have a straight answer for how I realized that. I kind of just did. It kind of just happened. Um, really thankful it happened.
Yeah.
But yeah, it kind of just happened, and then after that, slowly, kind of like it was actually when we were all like kind of in lockdown because of the pandemic. I was with my mum for about a month in the lockdown, and I wasn't even thinking about it. I wasn't thinking about him, but us. He hadn't even messaged me. I think I was just slowly coming to realize the things that he had done to me, and you know the things I'd written down, and how they were bad. And I was speaking to my mum about my experiences, things that happened, and realizing that they were abusive and that I had been in an abusive relationship. Um, so that was really kind of good for my healing because now how I feel now is that I'm over him and the relationship, but it's the long lasting effects of the trauma from an abusive relationship that I now still am feeling, and I don't know when they'll go away or how to deal with them, but I'm trying.
I think it's so important. I just want to give you a hug right now to help you, let you know there is healing, there is hope. And
Mhm.
yes, there are long term effects.
Yeah.
And it's important for people to realize that. So you were together for a total of 3 years. Is that what's
About that, yeah, like on
yeah,
and off the
on and
years,
off
yeah.
for 3 years. And then it was really the last 7 months that were the bad months, the abusive months. Is that right?
Kind of, yeah. Before that, we were a lot younger, and it wasn't as clear to me, and there wasn't as many as that. It was more
Yeah.
how he could go out of my life and come back in whenever he
Mhm.
wanted. But
Yes.
in the last sort of those 7 months really kind of showed me because there was loads and loads and loads of instances that I
Yeah.
now look back on and see.
Yes. So the reason I'm keying in on that is that trauma bonding of the cycle,
Hmm.
intense out of your life, intense out of your life. And when
Mm,
they are there, at first it's kind, it's loving, it's wonderful, and then it gets to be abusive, and then they're out of your life.
yeah.
And it's this confusing pattern that actually wires our
Hmm.
brains and does something to our emotions, and trauma bonds us to that person. And you're right, it takes time. And so
Yeah.
anybody who has been in an abusive relationship, doesn't even matter how long it's been, if it's been abusive, they need time and to give
Mm,
themselves grace to heal. And
yeah.
it sounds like you're giving yourself
Definitely.
grace in that process, which is so good.
Mm, yeah.
And I want to back up as well. You said he apologized, recognized that things were wrong, and he sucked you back in. There's actually a term for that. It's called hoovering. Are you
Mm,
familiar with a Hoover vacuum cleaner?
yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, right? That's where it comes from. Because
Hmm.
the narcissist, the abuser, will suck the person back in by doing the things they know are important to that other
Hmm.
person. And so you just nailed it when you said
Yeah.
he did the things that you always wanted. He becomes the perfect boyfriend all of a sudden.
Yeah. It really
And
is like that.
it's so charming. It sucks you back in, and you think maybe there is some hope. And
Yeah.
again, I'm so glad that you know, dude, we're done here. I'm not
Hmm.
worried. I'm never going to think about could I have made it work.
Yeah, definitely.
Awesome. So, what are some of the things that you're doing to address the effects of the abuse and to start to heal from it?
I'll be honest, I'm kind of still figuring that out. I'm not really great at doing that. Um, one thing I'll say is just like giving myself space from other people. So like
Yes.
in the last sort of like couple of months, I'd say there has been people in my life that have, kind of said to me, "Oh, like I really like you. Like I'd like to do this and that with you. I'd like to go on a few dates with you." see where things go. And then in my like kind of heart and soul, when they say that, all these like alarm bells go off, and I'm like, no, 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 no. I'm
Good.
like, and it's like I start to feel trapped, and I'm like, I don't want that.
Yes.
I'm like, no, because I'm definitely not over any of that happens. So I'm
Yes.
like, I don't want to be doing anything, going into anything with you. Um, and it's kind of sad because it's always really nice people, and I'm kind of like, I don't want to hurt you, but like I would be the worst girlfriend in the
I,
world at the moment. So
I
I
can't
really don't know.
I can't tell you how healthy that is. It seems like it's unhealthy, but it is
Yeah.
so healthy to to see those alarms and hear those alarms
Hmm.
and to say, this is not good. I am not in a good place right
Yeah.
now. I'm not going to be a good partner for two reasons. Number one, because yes, if we don't heal, what we do is we take those issues to the next relationship.
Yeah, definitely.
And number two, what happens is oftentimes we continue to find abusers until we recognize our own patterns and start to short circuit them. So it's
Hmm.
vital to take that time to heal and
Yeah.
to not enter into any relationships. Good for you.
Hmm. I definitely think that's the best idea.
Yeah. And you said you're still figuring it out.
Hmm. Yeah. Hmm.
Yeah. What are some things you're doing to take care of yourself during this time?
Um, it sounds actually very, very cheesy, but I started taking more care of my skin,
Yeah.
like my skincare and stuff. Um, I never really knew what to do with that before. Like I was never interested in it, never had any kind of knowledge about it. And then I started watching a few YouTubers who specialize in that. And yeah, that's kind of just something I've looked into that's made me feel good about myself.
Wonderful. Yeah.
It's
So
so
if
small, but yeah.
yeah, it may sound cheesy as you say it. I
Hmm.
don't care what it is, as long as it's healthy for people. I recommend
Yeah.
during the time when you're starting to recognize what you experienced was abuse until you have fully healed, you have to
Yeah.
continue self care. And
Hmm.
throughout your life, you're going to need to practice it, but especially
Yeah.
during the time when it's most poignant and most new, you've got to find
Hmm.
those things that help you reconnect with you and feel a little bit better. I don't care what it is. Again, as long as it's healthy.
Yeah. Hmm.
Good for you. So, what kind of help or advice would you give to people who either are in a situation like yours or are just coming out of a situation?
Um, I don't know. That's a question. Um, I think for people that may be in a relationship like that, I think probably it sounds so cheesy again, but the best thing to do is to listen to your instincts, like your gut instincts. Like if something is telling you that's not right, or I shouldn't have been treated that way, like go with it. And either I I would say don't try and bring it up with the abuser themselves, because they will try and gaslight
Right.
you
That's
into
right.
thinking that you are crazy. So I don't think trying to resolve the situation would do any good, but just thinking to yourself, do I deserve this? And that most likely will be a no, and it should be a no, and to just leave. And that sounds so much easier than said than done. And I know it is because I didn't for a very long time. But it really is true when people say these people don't change, and they never will change. And no matter how much you love someone or how much you want to help them, they're never gonna change. Um, so I definitely would say if you've got those like alarm bells going off in your head, or if someone's done something to you, or even not just one thing, a series of things. If you see a pattern,
Mm,
don't think to yourself, "Am I crazy? Like, am I thinking this and it's not true?" Like, it is true and you're not crazy. Leave and end it. If you can do that, because I know it is easier said than done. And I definitely would say for people that are coming out of an abusive relationship, definitely block all contact. Don't don't still keep their number just in case they want to message. Like, don't. I I don't know if it's a good or bad thing, but I'm definitely a person to when if someone is leaving my life and they've not been a nice person, I will just cut all contact with them. So like social media, like
yeah.
Instagram and Snapchat, Twitter, whatever you have, or even phone numbers and everything. to just block them on it or make sure they can't contact you. And another thing for me is I don't know if I'm just really ruthless with how I feel, but I don't like to keep souvenirs from people like that because
Yeah.
in my mind I'll look at them and think, oh, it was really nice, like it wasn't that bad, like because they gave you this and they done this nice thing. So for me, I had a necklace, a silver diamond infinity necklace that he had given me quite early in our relationship, and I'd always kept it throughout the times that we'd break up and everything. I'd always kept it because I'd always thought, oh well, that reminds me of a nice point in our relationship. Like it's nice to keep. I had a few of his like t-shirts and stuff, and I had all of our photos and videos on my phone of like just the last 7 months that we'd had together. So in that September time when he did break up with me for the final time, I threw all of that away. I threw the diamond necklace away. I wish I'd sold it. I wish I'd sold it, but I just threw it away. I threw all these clothes away, and I actually deleted all of our videos together. I actually already had our pictures printed out because I did want to keep them for in my lifetime in 10, 20 years' time to look back on the pictures. I did want to keep one thing, but I didn't want them on my phone. I didn't want because on Snapchat you've got the memory parts. I didn't want it on my Snapchat either, so I deleted them from everywhere. I definitely think that's a good thing to do that because then you can go back and look at things and think, oh well, it actually was quite good because it wasn't. It might have maybe in that one little moment have been good, but it definitely doesn't take away from the whole relationship. And one last thing as well is messages, because a lot of people have a tendency to keep messages
Yes.
from their exes to reread them, and I definitely say don't do that. Um, delete them because what they once said, something nice they once said, doesn't take away from all the horrible and nasty abusive things that they done. Um, yeah, so that's what I'd say, and also write down on paper or on your phone, like a list of all the horrible things that they done to you and the bad qualities about them, so that when you do in the first few weeks of that breakup, when you do find yourself thinking, "I wish I had them back," to read that and then remember, no, you don't want them back because this is what they are like. That's what I done anyway, and it kind of helped for me.
So good. You are wise beyond your years. No contact after the if somebody has children with them, it's a different story, and those they have to
Yeah.
navigate that. But as long as you can make the clean break, make the clean break, everybody, right? And yes, it
Hmm.
is easier said than done to get out of the relationship. There are a lot of
Yeah.
resources. So if somebody's not sure, here in the States, we have the National Domestic Violence Hotline. Their website is thehotline.org. It's a great resource. 1-800-799-7233 is the number. And every country has their own version of that, the National Domestic Violence Hotline. So they can help you create an exit plan and get out, especially in dangerous situations, because some of these
Hmm.
unfortunately are. And
Yeah.
I love that you mentioned, Carla, you said, if you start to wonder, am I crazy? You're not. That's a
Hmm.
red flag there, isn't it? If you start to wonder to
Yes.
yourself, am I crazy? That's a red flag that something's wrong in
Hmm.
this relationship.
Definitely. Like I remember I would be quite emotional. Like I'm an emotional person anyway, but when he would do things that would make me really sad or if we'd have an argument that he was very horrible and or if it was because of him and I would be crying or just really sad, he'd be like, "Why are you crying? Like why are you upset? Like you've no reason to be upset, nothing's happened." And I actually remember once it was because he was obviously in the military. I don't know the equivalent in the States, but here you have something called a passing out parade, which is basically like them qualifying as a soldier.
Okay.
And that happened for him. And we had like a party with all his friends and family there. And I used to be quite a socially anxious person. I'm not anymore, but I used to be. And so I didn't really know people at that party, and I thought to myself, I don't want to be clinging on to him all night because that's not good. So that's that's not fun. No one wants that. So I made a big effort to go and speak to all of his friends, get to know them all, and then at the end of the night, I couldn't find him anywhere. I said to one of his friends, Where is he?" And they were like, "Oh, we think he's upstairs in your room." So I went up, and I could immediately tell he was in the worst mood in the world. And I thought, and it's just, it's not funny, but it's just interesting thinking back now to think, that's so sad that I knew initially I was like in for getting shouted at or, being abused. But yeah, so I knew he wasn't all right, and he would constantly say, "No, he was fine," and I was like, "You're not. So just tell me what's wrong." And he actually ended up accusing me of flirting with all of his friends when I in no way did that at all.
Yep.
It's just it's out of this world funny because I am the most loyal person, especially to him. And I was like, but I wasn't flirting with your friends. I was like, I was trying to get to know them because I didn't want to be following you around all night. And he was like, no, I would rather you had followed me around all night. And now when I'm thinking about it, I'm like, why why did you stay for that? That's ridiculous. But at the time, what he would do and what a lot of abusive people will do is they will throw it back on you and make you think you need to apologize for something you didn't do.
That's
And
right.
that is what he done that night and a lot of other nights,
Yep.
but that night specifically. So I then apologized for flirting with his friends when I didn't.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Again, they need the worship. So you talking to
Mm,
anybody else is a threat. And it's not funny, but it is funny. The narcissist will always find somebody who is as loyal as the day is long, somebody who is not going to cheat on them.
mm-hmm.
That's who they
Yep.
find because they know that's the person that's going to worship them. But what they do is they accuse you of cheating as a way for you to run even closer to them and worship them even more and show them, no, I'm
Yeah.
so committed. You're the only thing
Mm,
I think about. And it
yeah.
gets what they want. It gets you to worship them even more when they
Yeah.
can accuse you of that because they know that that's important to you. It's sick.
Yeah.
It's
I
so
know.
sick.
I remember one example of that actually is, I mean, he was constantly doing that. But one example of that is because he was in the military, he would then sooner rather than later in our relationship, he was going to have to be deployed for a long time.
Yeah.
And we'd spoke about that, and we were very young, so it was a very serious relationship to be having young, but we had it anyway. And I'd said to him, like, obviously I'm going to stay with you. Like, I'm going to be here when you get back. Like, I wouldn't think of anything else. And he would constantly make jokes, but he would be very serious about these jokes about how I would then cheat on him when he was away, and of like how this happens to so many soldiers, and I would be the same. And I was like, but no, I'm not. I was like, I literally have eyes for no one else but you, and that won't change when you're away. But he would constantly go on about that. Um, which, thinking back to it doesn't surprise me now.
No. Their greatest fear is to be cheated on because that is the greatest hurt that somebody can
Mm,
experience. It's a
yep.
total degradation of the person and a rejection of the person. So that for them is their greatest fear. That's why they're constantly talking about it and bringing it up. And
Yeah.
again, they get you to worship them. So it's a twofold. But here's the thing,
Mhm.
they're the ones who cheat
They
because,
are. Yeah.
yeah, right? Because they need the ego stroke and they love the
Yeah.
attention and they justify it feeling that they deserve it. It's
Mhm.
unbelievable. So that you
I
can
know.
always see a narcissist because they will accuse you of doing that which they do. They will accuse
Yeah.
you of that which is their greatest fear if you were to do, but when they do, totally justify.
Mhm. I know.
Sad, isn't it? I want
It
to,
really is.
I really want to make sure folks understand this point that you mentioned. You said in September you knew in your heart that something wasn't right. And when I
Mhm.
asked what should people who are in situations like yours was, what should they know? You said they should pay attention to how they feel in their heart.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mhm.
The heart will not lead you astray. You can tell in your heart. You can
No.
feel it in your heart.
Definitely. There was one point where I actually felt like it was when we then got back together. Um, it was weird. It was like I was realizing, no, you shouldn't be doing this. Like he is the worst news ever. Like he's gonna abuse you again. Like you're going down the really wrong path. And it was like my brain was telling me that, but I wasn't strong enough to leave. I wasn't strong enough to put an end to it, and that made me feel horrible.
Mhm.
Um, I actually remember it was. I remember it as if it was yesterday. I think he was texting me or something, and we weren't arguing or anything. It was a nice text, and I was alone. I think that's why actually I remember, because when he broke up with me out of nowhere, I was just going into second year in uni, and I had already had a really horrible time at uni. Nothing to do with him. It was all to do with uni and where I was. So I was really having a hard year at uni anyway, and I'd always thought about leaving, but I'd never really made the effort to, because in my country anyway, there's only 3 universities that do the course that I do, and
Yeah.
there's only about 60 to 70 at the time. There was only 60 to 70 students being taken in per uni. So I felt if I left uni, I'd be throwing my dream away.
Right.
Um, and then that happened, and I was just like a shell of a person, and I just couldn't do it anymore. So I left, and then when he found out that I'd left uni, he ultimately put it to himself that he was the reason, and he kind of sounded proud of it. And to be honest, yes, what he done was the tipping point to why I did, but it definitely wasn't just him, just the reason why I left. But I remember, when we got back together, and I realized, I'd left uni. I did have the plans to reapply and go back, but this was only about October time, and I hadn't made those efforts yet. I didn't even have a job anymore, so I was very much lost in life. And then I felt like you're just accepting this person back who ultimately put you in this position. I was like, and you're letting him do that, and you know it's wrong, but you're not strong enough to put an end to it. And so that made me feel disgusting. Like I felt a lot of hatred towards myself because of that. And I remember just like breaking down like on my bed, like crying my eyes out for like, but for no other reason than that. And then obviously about a month later, I kind of realized, and I was like, no, I'm not doing this again.
Good. Good for you. It takes the average abused person 7 times of leaving before they leave for good.
Yeah, I can
Yeah.
get that. Yeah, I mean, because we broke up probably about 5 times,
Yeah.
and that was the last time. So
Wow.
it, I'd lost count of how many times. Um, and I actually remember finding out. Definitely when I'm with someone, I'm not the person who goes snooping on the phone at all. Like I don't care about that.
Yeah.
Like, because if I trust them, then why should I? So I
Right.
would never do that. Um, but with him, I don't know. I just had the sense that I don't even know why I did it. I just did, and I found out things because of it. Um, so I'm not condoning it, but I did it in this one point, and I actually found out that when we had gotten back together, he was still in a relationship with his other ex girlfriend that
Yeah.
he told me he wasn't. And I remember when we got back together, I went and met him, and at the time, I asked him, I was like, "Are you still in a relationship with this person?" And he lied to me and said that he wasn't. And then the next day, I left. And then I remember it must have been a few months later, I brought it up because one of his friends had said something to me that kind of made me think that was the case. And I said to him, were you still with this girl when we first met up again? And he was like, "Oh yeah, but I just didn't say so because I knew you wouldn't have like stayed with me if I had said no." Yeah. And I was like, Okay." I was like, "That's not right." Like, again, I just took it, and he made me
Yeah.
believe that everything was fine. But looking back, I'm like, I shouldn't have dealt with that because he, one, cheated on his other girlfriend, and two, was dishonest with me. Like, you know, it was just crazy, absolutely crazy.
It's a very confusing time. It's hard to sort through all the emotions and everything that goes along
Definitely.
with it. You, I hope, soon will release yourself from the thoughts that you weren't strong enough to leave because it takes time. It
Yes,
just does.
definitely. Hmm.
So, anybody that's able to get out and end those relationships and stay away is stronger than they ever could possibly imagine because those trauma bonds are very strong.
They really are. Like I remember there was a point in my life where if he had messaged me again, which he used to do a lot, I wouldn't have been able to ignore it. And since December, he has tried to contact me 4 times, I think. And one of the times was actually quite insulting because, and it was equally as pathetic as it was insulting because he had seen my Tinder account and seen that on my Tinder account I had that I was bisexual, which he knew I was bisexual because I told him that when we were together. And he then messaged me on Instagram saying, I think something along the lines of, by the way, I seen your Tinder. Since when were you bi? And making a joke out of it. And I just like ignored it because I was like, that's your pathetic attempt to speak to me when you know that I am and my sexuality has nothing to do with you. Um, and then again, he messaged me again only about a few weeks ago saying that did I still have one of his tops because he wanted to do something with it? And I thought to myself, you are simply very pathetic. And I just typed back, no, I don't. And then he messaged me being like, oh, I I thought you might not. I was like, no. I was like, you're getting nothing else from me.
Those hoovering attempts, it's quite funny if you know what's going on and if you can sort through it
Mm,
like you did.
yeah.
They will use, and your wording earlier was perfect. You said something like he used something, he threw out something that he knew would get a reaction from you.
Mm,
That's what they do.
yeah.
It's the craziest thing. They'll pick the one thing that they know this will get a
Yeah.
reaction, and they
Mm,
throw that out there so that they can start that process of pulling you back in and hoovering you.
I
It's
know. It is. It's ridiculous. It's the fact that
ridiculous.
he lied about something so horrible. Like suicide's very prevalent in this day and age, and the
Yes,
reason I know he lied about it is because what he said done, there was absolutely no proof of it on his body
mhm,
whatsoever. When I then seen him, which coming from like kind of working in the medical realm, I know there would be some, residue from that. There'd still
right.
be stuff there, and there wasn't. And I remember I actually brought it up to him and I went, be honest with me. I was like, did you lie to me about that? And he went, no. And I was like, you did though. There's nothing there. It's like, there's no mark on your neck. And he was like, no, it was just really fast at going away. And I was like, stop being stupid. I was like, I'm not stupid. I know that there would be something there.
Uh,
Honestly.
it's so sad, Carla. I'm so glad you got out, and I'm so glad that you've been able to maintain that no contact. Aside from the quick,
Mm,
you saw
yeah.
what was happening there when he asked about his top. You've kept it
Yeah.
kind, honest, and reasonable. You've kept him at a distance, and you've been able to start that healing journey. That's great, and I'm proud of you for that.
Hmm.
That's huge,
I
really.
am as well.
Is there anything else that's been helpful to you as you started to heal that others might be able to benefit from?
Um, Actually, there is. There's a book that I read.
Yeah,
Let me go see if I can find it.
great.
It really, really helped me. Um, it's a fiction book, but it's actually written by a man,
Yeah,
but it was kind of, it's meant to be for everyone, but it follows a female dialogue, follows a
okay.
woman. It's called The Modern Breakup. That's what it looks like.
Modern breakup. Okay, good.
Yeah, and it's by a man called Daniel Shidak. I don't know how to say that.
Good.
But no, it's really good because it does show you kind of it really opened my eyes up to the things that was happening to me, and not just the people in abusive relationships. It's kind of you know made for everyone. People who are just dating and like have a bad kind of life with dating who constantly go through the same challenges that they then keep on doing because they don't realize what they're doing.
Mm,
um it was really good. I really like that, but also just speaking up about it, like whether that's to a stranger or your friends and family. I really benefited from speaking to my mum about it, um to my friends as well. But I mean, lately, obviously, I sent you that picture. The
yeah,
reason why, I mean, I sent that to quite a few like Instagram accounts who were directed at emotional abuse and stuff, and I kind of just thought to myself, you know, if I can help like one person, then that's great, because I do sometimes I do post things on my own Instagram story, not things like that, not very personal things, but like quotes and things like that to help, because I do think another thing that I mean, maybe people who are watching this that might be part of the LGBTQ plus community, it is kind of like coming out in a way when you say to the world, yes, I'm a survivor of um, emotional abuse,
Yeah.
because it kind of does feel like that. It's as scary as when you do come out.
Yeah.
um, and I think it's important to, if you feel ready to be like not ashamed of it, if that makes sense. Because for a while I kind of was, and I thought, you know, if I was gonna repost something on my story, I thought, well, all these people that know me can see that, and it's a bit embarrassing. But then I thought, there's nothing to be embarrassed about. If anything, he should be embarrassed because all these people know him too, and they know it's about him. So I was like, I shouldn't be ashamed or embarrassed. But no, definitely, I think speaking out, if you feel ready to, is really important, because then it kind of,
So important.
I don't know, it kind of frees you a little bit, and then you can feel like you're helping someone, you know, even just one person.
Carla, it's so important. And that's why I appreciate you sharing your story is it gives hope to other people and it gives them the
Yeah.
strength that they need to recognize what's going on, put a name
Mhm.
to it, because that crazy, you know as well as anybody, when you're in that moment, you don't know what's happening. And it's just crazy and
Mhm.
it's weird and it's
Yep.
wild. And so you have to first recognize that, yeah, this is weird, but then you have to understand and put a name to it and recognize it really is abuse. Then you've got to
Mhm.
accept it that,
Yep.
yeah, I that's what I've been experiencing. And one of
Mhm.
the best ways for people to get that understanding is to see it through other people's experience and to hear, oh wow, my boyfriend
Mhm.
did that too. He told me I can't go anywhere alone. He told
Yep.
me, don't wear that, you look like a slut, or don't wear that,
Yep.
it's too revealing. And they do it in a way that makes it seem like, oh, they really care about you or whatever, but it's really
Mhm.
all about them. And so hearing that, yes, you speaking up makes a huge difference, more than you
Yeah, it
know.
really does. Yeah, definitely. Mhm.
And yeah, let's touch on this thing that you sent. So you wrote down, this is your journal, right?
This is just a random piece of paper.
Oh, that's right. Okay.
The reason why I wrote it was because I was actually wanting to put the photos of the two of us up in our like attic.
Yeah.
Just because they were lying in my room, they were actually behind my bed. I just didn't want to have them in my room anymore, so I just
Yeah.
wanted them out the road somewhere. But I also then wanted to put, again, like I said, something um in with it, so that when I did go and look at them again, I could remember. And I also put like, I actually wrote something as well. It's really long, but I wrote something else as well, like to myself basically,
Nice.
um, so that I could then read it at some point.
That's great. Yes. So here's the message. I'm sending you this. I was in an emotional abusive relationship. I personally have found a post such as this very helpful in trying to figure out exactly what I was going through. Yes. So it
Mm.
kind of mimics your experience, all the reasons. So I'm just going to read a few of these.
Mhm.
Never let me go to the bar on my own. Didn't want me to go out without him. Didn't want me posting bikini pics. Didn't want me to wear certain bikinis to the beach or the spa. Started arguments when I didn't and demanded I tell him absolutely everything. Embarrassed me in front of friends. Accused me of flirting with his friends. See, you didn't write this and see how cookie cutter it is to the
Yeah.
experiences, right? That's why people need
Mhm.
to hear other people's experiences and to know
Yeah.
I really am not crazy. Would badmouth my best
Definitely.
friend in front of me.
Yep. He did
Yeah.
that a lot.
Yeah. And I'm sorry, were you going to say something else there?
No, no, no. That's okay. Just keep going.
He would never let me choose what we would watch. He made all
Mm.
of our decisions, would never acknowledge my achievements, wouldn't show affection. Uh, There's so many of these I could dive into and talk for 10,
Mm.
15 minutes on each one. But that affection thing, it's most abusers only accept affection on their terms. And it's so sometimes they demand that you are intimate with them, especially men abusers. They demand that you're intimate with them exactly when they want it, how they want it, every time they want it. But when
Yep.
you come to them looking for any type of affection, what do you get?
Mhm. Nothing.
Get away
Like
from me. Yeah.
one thing that was very prevalent for me that I remember is, I remember, I think it was actually the last time I ever spent with him, like person to person, and we were in, I can't remember whose house we were at, but someone's house, and we were just watching TV, and we were like lying in bed together, and he put his arm around me and was kind of like, like doing that with it. And then he actually leaned in and kissed me. And I, like, at that point, I was like, oh my God, because this never happened. Like,
Yeah.
he would never cuddle me first, or he would never kiss me first, like, or anything like that. Never, ever would he do anything like that first. It would always be me. And when I came out of that relationship, and then I kind of thought back to it. I thought, this is like, that's not how a relationship should be. It should be both people making effort to do that. Like, it shouldn't even be something you have to think about. You
right?
should just do it.
Yeah.
But he would never do it. No.
No, no, and it goes back to, again, I could speak for 15 minutes on each one, but it really goes back to emotional intimacy. They can't do emotional intimacy.
No.
And
No.
therefore, affection is really out unless it's to worship them and to praise them. Then
Mm.
they can do it.
Mhm.
It's just
Yeah.
made me tell him if any man messaged me, was obsessed with my exes. He saw me as his property. The abuser does see you as an extension of themselves. They see you as their property. And
Yeah.
that drives so many of the crazy behaviors. So, yeah, posts like this, telling stories like this, it's vital for people to get the help that they need. So, thank you for being
Mhm.
willing to share it. I really appreciate
Yeah,
it.
it's okay. Yeah.
Is there anything else you think people ought to know that could be helpful to them, either while they're in the midst of it or as they're on their healing journey?
What do you think about that? I can't think of anything else right now. I just think I should reiterate the fact of listen to yourself. Like, if you think something is wrong, it is wrong. You're not wrong about that. You're not crazy. If they're saying that to you, it is because they are abusers, and that's what they do. Um, so if you do feel something in your stomach that's not right, and or you do recognize patterns, you are you are right about that, and leave. Try your hardest to leave, um, or even make attempts to start doing that, because it'll only keep going and going, and you'll just keep recognizing this. And then if if you're not strong enough, like at one point I wasn't, probably what happened to me, when I sat and realized it all and had that a lot of self-loathing and I started crying, that most likely happened to you, or something similar. And that's not nice. So definitely think to yourself, is this right? If I'm feeling like it's not, then it's not.
If I'm feeling like it's not right, it's not. That's perfect.
Mhm.
And that's a
Yeah.
great place to wrap it all up.
Yep.
I really, really appreciate you sharing your story. And yeah, it is important to speak out, and it can be scary, it can be embarrassing. And by doing so, you've helped a lot of people. So I'm going to post this on YouTube and then on the
Mhm.
stopemotionalabuse.net website. I'll send it
Yeah.
out through social media and things like that. And of course,
Mhm.
I'll let you know when it's published so that you can see what it does.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I really appreciate it. Thanks, Carla.
Oh,
We will
it's
be in
okay.
touch. Again, thank you for sharing your
Okay.
story.
You're welcome.